I called it Weight Loss Session 7, but it's really more just metabolism and overall health, and really wanted to kind of touch on how to live longer and healthier, improve your health span rather than just your lifespan. And if you live to be 100 and your last 10 years were in the nursing home, I think most people would say that that's probably not a win. Just going to continue the theme of overall health, kind of touch on what do people really want when they come to the doctor. I mentioned health insurance and this current system we're in and why it's not great. And then, is losing weight actually healthy? And then some ways to stay healthy. Generally, people want one of these three things. They either want to feel better, or they want to look better, or they want to live longer. Any combination of that, but in general, that's kind of what they want. When somebody's sick, they come to the doctor, they want to feel better, or they come in, I need a checkup because I want to know if I need to worry about something, catch it before. I love these graphs. So this is basically a graph of lifespan over time. So this would be in decades. So you can see from left to right on the bottom, numbers are cut off a little bit, but 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90 years of age. The lower is kind of our typical, our usual. The orange is after we hit about 40 or 50, our health kind of starts to decline, and it goes on a steady until we pass away. And then you can move that curve and improve your health and make it start to drop off later and then drop off more sharply. In the perfect world, what you want to be really healthy for about 90 years and then just die in your sleep. I mean, that's what I think most people would want. Everybody's going to die no matter what. We don't like to think about it, but you want to be healthy for as long as possible, active, do whatever you want, and then drop. So you want to improve your health span. Here's just another graph of that. I liked this one. So instead of growing old slowly and getting more and more debilitated, you want to go to the very end when you got it. You may have to have a cane, but you can still go dancing if you wanted to. The recent election I saw this while I was doing my research, and it kind of reminded me, since I was thinking about health insurance, is, Ronald Reagan said the most terrifying words you ever hear is, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." And so that kind of dovetails into health insurance. So have any of y'all ever been in a situation where you're like, why does my insurance not cover this? Like you're wanting something and they're like, why do they not pay for that? Like to check an insulin level. Or the other day I had a patient, so the screening recommendations for colon cancer have decreased. We used to wait till you were 50 and then you start getting screened for colon cancer, but a few years ago they changed it to 45 because we're seeing colon cancer in younger and younger people. And so now anybody 45 or older should be screened for colon cancer. Well, I ordered a colon cancer screening on a gentleman who was 48, never had one before. Insurance denied it, said he had to wait till 50. And so somebody, cares about their health, wanting to get screened for colon cancer at an appropriate screening test at their age, and insurance wouldn't cover it. They had to wait. So that kind of stuff comes up a lot. Our healthcare system is not to keep you healthy. It is to manage it when you're sick. So we see you when you're sick and try to manage that as best we can. And sometimes then it's a little bit too late. It's a disease management system. That's what you're trained. You go to medical school, you get trained on how to take care of sick people, how to manage diseases that are already present. Now, we get a little bit of preventative medicine, colon cancer screening, breast cancer screening, things like that. But in general, we're not trained on how to get from age 20 to 80 without having diabetes and high blood pressure and all that sort of stuff. You come in and we check your blood pressure, and if it's normal, we don't do anything. If it's high, then we talk to you about maybe starting a medicine or something like that, right? So it's a disease management model. It's not a disease prevention model. So the disease prevention, unfortunately, in this country is on the individual. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this a little bit, because a lot of people don't really understand that. They want to go to the doctor and get a checkup, and we just can't check everything. You gotta live right. You gotta do stuff. And the stuff that's good has usually been good forever. You don't have to have a sign of a heart healthy on a package of broccoli. Everybody knows it's healthy. We don't have to be lied to, advertisements and all that sort of stuff to know what really stuff is healthy. So this is kind of the gist of it. And these areas have been scientifically proven to be associated with longevity, and they're connected to each other, they're not individual. But these are the things, if you have these, and if you're more efficient or better with these things, you will live longer. And the first at the top is your cardiovascular efficiency. As you might imagine, how fit you are, how well you convert the food or the fat you have stored or whatever to energy. How well you can do that determines how healthy you are. Olympic athletes convert energy. They generate energy very efficiently. So that one I won't talk about too much just because that is obviously exercise and things like that. The two on the bottom are very good, especially as you get older. You want to maintain your lean muscle mass because what takes people out usually is a fall. You get off balance. You can't walk good, and because your muscles aren't strong, you don't have good proprioception to tell where your feet are on the ground, and you want to maintain your lean muscle mass so that you don't have those problems. And that's been associated with longevity. We call it we have a normal loss of muscle as we get older. We get sarcopenia. That's the medical term for it. So there's a little bit of that happens naturally, but people who have a lot more of that, they're more frail and they just can't get up. And once you can't get up and take care of yourself, somebody else has got to care for you. You're on the steady decline usually. And you know that. Y'all have helped take care of people. And then the other is how well your cells metabolize and generate energy. And that really boils down to insulin resistance. What diabetes is, too much sugar, too many carbohydrates over time when we get carbs, we release insulin. We have to keep it out of the blood because sugar's toxic to the body. It has to keep it very low. That's why diabetics have eye problems and heart problems and kidney disease and all that. It's because the sugar is toxic to the cells. So trying to keep that sugar normal, the body releases insulin. Well, if you eat too much and too often or the wrong things, then the body has a lot of insulin around all the time, and eventually it gets resistant to that and has to make more and more insulin. At first, it can make more insulin from the pancreas and you don't really notice anything. Then eventually it can't make enough. Then your blood sugar starts to go up above normal. And that's when we say you're pre-diabetic. And then it goes up even higher and we've got cutoff points. Then we say you're diabetic. But that's a process that took, probably 10 to 15 years to develop, honestly. And so how sensitive you are to insulin. Insulin's one of the key hormones, insulin and glucagon. If you just release like an Olympic athlete real thin, they probably have an insulin level of almost zero most of the time. They eat something, they release just a little bit of insulin, they use that sugar and it goes into the cells to be burned up. But if you're diabetic, you've got a lot of insulin, it's just not working. And so you can't get that sugar to be used. And if you think about it, that's why a lot of people have type 2 diabetes. I'm talking about type 2, not type 1. Type 2 diabetics are bigger. And it's because they can't use that fuel. So they're in fat storage mode all the time. They can't use what they've got stored up. The system is kind of broken and it becomes a downward spiral and it's really hard to reverse. So the point of all that is worry about insulin resistance before you get insulin resistant, not after. I mean, I'll help you. I treat diabetes all day long, but I would rather you not get diabetes. That would be much easier on me. And I think we, as a society, can focus on that, but we don't. We want to do whatever we want and then take a pill for it. The big point is a lot of people know where they want to go, where they want to be. I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. I want to weigh this or that. But it's like if I wanted to drive from here drive from somewhere to Orlando, if I wanted to go to Disney World, I can have a map. I can go get an atlas or I got Google Maps or whatever. But I can never get there if I don't know where I'm at right now, where my starting point is. So you got to have 2 points in order to get directions. You got to know where you're coming from. And so always, first things first, just kind of figure out where you are at personally. And this is where medicine, it's not in this lecture, but they kind of talk about medicine now as there was medicine 1.0 where we just manage diseases, and then medicine 2.0 where we try to do a little bit of prevention, and now there's medicine 3.0 where we're starting to get into the genetics and individualized medicine where we can do some genetic tests, a lot more stuff, combine that with preventative stuff and disease management and really individualized treatment for people instead of just giving everybody the same treatment, which they do that a lot in cancer treatments. You get specific, gene testing and things like that. So that's kind of coming. That's where we're going to now. But it's not like mainstream for everything. Some big things you can look at to know where you're at is your weight or your body mass index, which are not super specific, but they do give you an idea. What fuel are you burning? Do you know right now if you're burning fat or if you're burning carbohydrates? Usually you're burning one of the two. Your body can burn protein or it can burn fat and it makes ketones, or it can just burn carbs. You're burning basically carbohydrates or fat. And so if you want to know if you want to lose weight, do you know if you're burning fat right now or not? I'm going to show you a way to know. Are you insulin resistant? And you don't want to know, I don't care about your A1C. If your A1C is up, then you're diabetic. You're definitely insulin resistant. If If you want to know if you're insulin resistant, you got to have a fasting insulin level checked. And you can get one of those done for probably $15 or $20 if your insurance doesn't pay for it. How much inflammation do you have in your body? We'll talk a little bit about things that cause you to be inflamed, and that causes you to age quicker, as you might imagine. Metabolic flexibility. How well do you switch from carbs to fat burn? Are you just always, most of us are just always burning carbs because it's just food everywhere. And then how well you use insulin. These are some things you want to know. So this is just a picture. It's a little bit busy, I apologize. This is about body mass index and why it's not always good. Both of those individuals weigh 150 pounds, but one has almost no fat and a lot of muscle, and the one with the red has a lot of fat and no muscle, but they're both the same weight. So if you just look at body mass index, which is an equation that you give your height and your weight, and it calculates it. But it's a start. It's just not perfect. So a bodybuilder will have a super high body mass index, but they've got all muscle, and it looks bad. Their BMI will be 40 or 50. So this is kind of the progression of insulin resistance. So the blue line is your blood sugar levels, and the green line is insulin production. So at first, when you first start to get insulin resistant, your insulin goes up, but your sugar doesn't really go up much. And over time, the insulin goes way up, and then your sugar starts to come up behind it because there's more resistance. And then eventually, your sugar goes way up and your insulin starts to go down because you can't make any more. The pancreas kind of gets burned out. And you see that sometimes real people who've been type 2 diabetics for a long time, they have to get on insulin because the pancreas just can't make enough insulin anymore. So they can almost become a type 1 and a type 2 combined. And vice versa, a type 1 diabetic, they have to take insulin. If they don't take care of themselves and they have to use a lot of insulin, they can actually become type 2 diabetics on top of that. And that's a terrible situation. You don't want to be type 1 and type 2. So glucose, why glucose is bad? First off, you get the glucose level goes up. That actually attaches glucose to molecules. When we do an A1C, that test actually measures how much glucose is stuck to your red blood cells. If your A1C is real high, you got a whole bunch of glucose stuck to your red blood cells, which is not normal. But it's a test we get all the time, and people throw around A1C like it's no big deal. But if that's high, that actually means your red blood cells have got sugar stuck all over them. They may not work quite as well, and your red blood cells are important. They transport oxygen and carbon dioxide. But anyway, that causes methylation of the tissue. So it gets a methyl group added to it. Now your immune system sees that as foreign, and then the immune system starts to attack it. And so your whole body gets inflamed. So I'm tired, I don't sleep good, my joints hurt, I just feel awful. That could be from tissue methylation and possibly related to metabolism. And then gluten, I'm seeing this all the time now. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So celiac sprue or celiac disease is an actual allergy to gluten. So if somebody with celiac disease eats gluten, they'll be deathly sick, probably in the hospital if they eat very much of it. And if you check a lab test, they'll have antibodies against gluten. You can check a blood test for that. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity is you eat gluten and it makes you feel awful. It doesn't kill you, it doesn't make you deathly ill, but you feel bad. You got all these weird symptoms. You go to the doctor and we do a bunch of lab work and everything looks fine. Nothing's wrong. I can't find anything wrong with you. I don't know why your stomach's hurting and you feel bad all the time. And I will have them cut out gluten for about a month, and I can't count the number of people who come back and said, I feel great. I feel like I used to. I don't know what happened. And I tried to add back. I ate something with a little gluten in it, and I felt bad again. So I'm got to stay away from it. The way that our food is processed and the way the wheat has changed, and all the grains really, our bodies do not do well with that much of this substance. Gluten is something to be mindful of too. So if you feel bad and you want to try something, you don't have to do keto or any crazy diet. You can just cut out gluten. It's not all that hard. You can still have potatoes and lots of other things, but you have to do your homework. You got to know when you're going grocery shopping what's got gluten in it, what doesn't. But if you're not feeling great, then maybe try gluten. And there is a connection between the brain and the gut. If the gut doesn't feel good, you get all this feedback to the brain. It's called the gut-brain axis. And if you're irritating the gut a lot, your brain will give you symptoms of, depression, possibly anxiety, things like that, just fatigue. Have y'all heard of Hashimoto's thyroiditis? That's where you make antibodies against the thyroid gland. I see that quite a bit. There's Hashimoto's and Graves' disease. You probably heard of Graves' disease. Hashimoto's causes your immune system attacks the thyroid gland and kind of causes it to go all over the place. If you have antibodies against the thyroid and you have Hashimoto's, odds are it's because of gluten sensitivity, leaky gut. It's usually a gut issue that caused that, we think now. So I'm big on the low carb, as you know. So the American Diabetes Association in 2019 finally endorsed low carb as an option. For years it was like, nope, you can't do that, but there you have it. Don't take my word for it. Anybody ever eat a plate that looked like that? A red thing, 2 green things, and a piece of meat? Probably not around here. If you change your diet, your taste buds change. You'll like different things. I'm sure you like different food now than you did when you were a kid. But anyway, so kind of going to know where you are, I just wanted to show you a couple of things that I thought were really interesting with new technology. There's a thing called a lumen. It actually, you breathe into it, it measures your breath, and it can tell you if you're burning carbohydrates or fat. And then the Keto Mojo is a blood glucose monitor, but it also measures ketones. And so you got to stick your finger twice, but you can do that, and it'll tell you your blood sugar, and then it'll tell you how many ketones are in there, and it'll give you an index. It's called a glucose ketone index. And it'll tell you if you're burning fat and making ketones. And then just a plain old glucometer. There's continuous glucose monitors. I got one on. You see on my arm. I like to know, I'm not diabetic, but I like to know what my sugar is, and I like to know what things I eat do to my sugar. The other night I did an experiment. There's a new, this is fairly new, but the way you eat the macronutrients in your meal can affect how your blood sugar goes up or not. So if you eat the vegetables first, all the vegetables, and then the meat and fat, and then the carbohydrates, your blood sugar does not go up nearly as much. So like the example I would give you be hamburger steak, some broccoli, and some mashed potatoes. You eat the broccoli first, eat all the broccoli, then eat the hamburger, and then eat the mashed potatoes, and you'd be surprised if you do it, mix them all up and eat them, and then the next day do it in that order, and you knew what your sugar did, you'd be surprised it doesn't go up near as much. So it'd be a great treatment for diabetics. They call it macronutrient cycling, the way you eat your food, which, if you think about it, kind of explains a lot with the way we eat now and why everybody's getting overweight. That can help. That kind of stuff can help. But you do that kind of stuff, if you're monitoring it, you can experiment and make it more interesting, and you're not just doing this boring diet that you don't like, eating a bunch of food that nobody likes, that kind of stuff. Like, get it interesting. At least it kind of helps me. The continuous glucose monitor, your body mass index, that'll tell you where you're at. Measure your muscle mass and fat mass. This is the lumen. This is the device right here. It looks like a vape. You take a breath in and hold it for 10 seconds, and then you breathe out, and it gives you some measurements. Pretty neat little thing. It's like $200, so it's not cheap. It will tell you, it'll give you advice. This is all screenshots from the app. So it tells you about, for high intensity workouts, your mitochondria require carbs. And then if you're burning mostly carbs, then you probably have a lot of glycogen. You don't have to know all this stuff. I just wanted to show you the screen. And then during low intensity workouts, your mitochondria prefer fat. So you actually don't want to do extended hard workouts, because you get anaerobic, and you're actually just burning up probably your protein, honestly, after a while. Your muscle, but you don't want to lose muscle. This one here, it tells you, you can see they're mostly fat. So in that screenshot, they're burning mostly 80% fat, 20% carbs. And if you're in that situation, then you probably have low glycogen stores. What you want to know is you really want to get to the flexibility. How well can you switch back and forth? And if you eat carbs all the time, it's really hard to switch to burning fat. But if you burn fat all the time, you can switch to carbs, no problem. Eat a couple of Oreos, or eat a piece of bread or something like that, and you'll burn that. And then you can go back into fat burning mode, as long as you don't do that for an extended period. So that's why I like the keto diet personally, is because you stay in fat burning, you can go back and forth, and you're very flexible, and that is a sign of health. So this was mine when I got it booted up. You have to do readings for 2 weeks before it'll give you your flexibility score. Obviously, I could be better. Only 3/4 of the way around the circle, but it could be worse. I'm not sure what the number 15 means. I didn't go into that deep, but higher the better. Then it goes into it talks about the benefits. This is all on the app. Reduced inflammation, enhanced cognitive function, better mood, sleep, resilience, long-term health benefits, improved weight loss, improved fitness performance. So if you were an athlete, you'd perform better. All these things, I think everybody wants this, right? Enhanced cognitive function. You're likely to feel more focused and alert through the day. I see people all the time. They can't concentrate. They have trouble at work. It's all over. It's what we're eating is doing a lot of this to us. So anyway, and then just some more. These are three more screenshots. I won't read all that obviously, but just kind of wanted. That was talking about a boost day. So when you get it, you put in what kind of diet you want and what your health goals are. So mine, I do keto, and it had that in there, and I wanted, what the goal for me was, and it helps you. It gives you advice on how to reach those goals and maintain them. When you do keto, like every week or two, you need to do a boost day where you actually eat carbs because you want that flexibility where you go back and forth. So it was telling me my boost day. It was talking about it and how to follow it and why it's the science behind it. It replenishes your glycogen stores, things like that. So anyway, this may not make a whole lot of sense. The key is just it's good to be able to switch to burning fat or carbohydrates and not just always carbs. This was one after I ate it, and you tell it when you do it, if it was first thing when you wake up or before you eat or after you eat. It's pretty neat. It gives you advice. If you want to use it, it can help you through it. CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. There's three of them, really two. There's Dexcom and Freestyle. The Dexcom is prescription, 10 days, connects with your phone. That's what I'm wearing right now is a Dexcom. I can show you on the app what my sugar looks like if you want to see it. The Freestyle, basically the same thing. It lasts 14 days before you have to change it. I think the Dexcom is going to be 14 days here before long. I think they're updating it. They're both prescription. Insurance doesn't pay for them unless you got basically unless you're on insulin. Some insurances won't pay for it unless you're on insulin 4 times a day. Again, our healthcare system is broken. If somebody wants to know what their sugar is before they're diabetic, that is not a bad thing. You definitely got to know after you're diabetic, but if you're trying not to be diabetic or reverse some insulin resistance, that would be great. And then this new one is a Dexcom Stelo, S-T-E-L-O. That's basically a Dexcom, but you don't have to have a prescription. You can buy it online. It's $100 a month. They give you 2 sensors. They last 14 days, 14 to 15. If you subscribe to it, it's $80 or $90 a month, and you can get those. I've got a box up there. I'll show y'all when we get done. It's pretty neat, and no prescription, so anybody can get it, and fairly reasonably priced for the amount of information you get, and it works with your phone. So all you have to have is the sensor. You just put the sensor on, and it pairs with your phone, and that's all you got to have. These are some of my. I've got the G7. I got a sample of G7s. I got one of those from the rep, so that's what I'm wearing right now. These are some screenshots. So. See, my blood sugar is not doing too bad. I think there I ate some Chinese or something like that. Went up to 104. But now I don't eat the General Tso's, my favorite. I get to stay away from that. And the rice. I don't have rice or any of the deep fried stuff. So, but I go to the Chinese buffet and I eat 2 plates of food, and it's just what you eat. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about exercise and maintaining your lean muscle mass. We really don't exercise right either. We've been lied to about how to exercise. Just walking is really great exercise. That's fine. A fast walk is fine. That burns fat. So when you're exercising, most people exercise because they want to burn fat. Most people I don't think exercise to really build muscle, unless you're going to the gym to build muscle. Most people don't want to get real big. But you want to put on a little muscle and get rid of the fat. And to do that, you got to keep it aerobic. It takes the body to about 3 minutes to convert a glucose molecule to energy. It takes about 5 hours to convert fat. So you're not going to convert fat quickly. If you're running on a treadmill wide open, you're not going to burn much fat. I don't care if you're on there for an hour. It's just not going to happen. Because it takes time to break those fats down. But what you are going to do is break down some of your muscle probably, because you can get gluconeogenesis where you convert protein or your muscle, you change your muscle, you destroy it and make glucose out of it about 5 minutes. So you've used up all your sugar, which we do in just a few minutes, and then you keep going anaerobic, and you're going to start breaking down your muscle. So you want to stay aerobic and give it some time. And now there's some caveats to this. There's some neat things you can do where it doesn't take a long time. Have y'all heard of HIIT, high intensity interval training? This is pretty neat. This is where you actually get anaerobic, but only for a few minutes. It's real quick. So you exercise 5 minutes. You get your heart rate up to 100%, 95 to 100% of your maximum heart rate, which is 220 minus your age. So if you're 20 years old, you can get your heart rate up to 200. If you're 100 years old, 120. That's as high as it should go. If it's going higher than that, you might need to come see me or the cardiologist. That's the maximum it can get up to naturally. Now this is assuming no medications and all that sort of stuff. So you do that, 5 minutes, you warm up a little bit, and then you hit that hard as you can for 5 minutes. That's where you see the pictures of people in the gym with the ropes and they're just going crazy, just working as hard as they can. And then 5 minutes and you stop, and the benefits from that, the fat burn persists for days after you quit. So you can cheat, you can work hard for just a few minutes, and it really works. There's a Norwegian 4x4 routine where you warm up, and then you do 4 minutes at 95% or higher your maximum heart rate, and then 3 minutes of rest. And you do that like 4 times. So that's kind of a repeat high intensity, but just 4 sessions. And we're talking minutes here. This is not, I'm at the gym all day, every day. And then at the bottom, time to eat Skittles. You combine something like the lumen with your glucometer, and you know that you're burning fat or carbs. So if you're burning fat and you're wanting to build some muscle and you don't want to break it down, then you can eat some carbs. If you want to eat Oreos or Skittles, eat that 15 to 20 minutes before you go work out. Then you'll have some energy for your cells to use, and you actually will build muscle better. And if you do the high intensity, you'll lose some fat later. So that's the time to eat. So eat before your workouts. And I think bodybuilders, a lot of times will get protein right after, but it actually works better 30 minutes before. So if you're going to take a supplement before you exercise, 30 minutes before is good. And then just real quick, so there's some resources here at the top, lowcarbusa.org. And I'm not trying to say everybody needs to be low carb. I'm just saying we got to get a break from the carbs occasionally to burn some fat. We have carbs with every meal, and we never get a break. We never give our pancreas or our gut a break from that. And so we never get the opportunity to burn any fat. As soon as we wake up in the morning, we start eating, and we go right back into burning carbs. So they talk about an inverted food pyramid, which is really the way it ought to be. You ought to have like grains at the very top, little bitty tiny point, and then vegetables and things at the bottom. But anyway, these are some documentaries that I watched recently. These are really good documentaries that are like, I think most of them are free on Amazon Prime. But anyway, Fat Fiction, a documentary 1 and 2, Perfect Human Diet. And they talk about these things, what we need to eat, and instead of this processed grains, all that sort of stuff. And then there's a thing called V-Shred. You may have seen an advertisement for that. He's talking about these different foods. This is a metabolism killer. This is a metabolism killer. And what he is a proponent of is actually the metabolic flexibility. You do nutrient cycling, so you eat different types of food at different times. They call it metabolic confusion. So that way, again, it's just the variety. Get your body to where it uses different things and it's used to getting different types of foods. And then the macronutrient cycling, carb cycling, and nonlinear diet. These are kind of the buzzwords. You might come and be on the lookout for those. But that's where you eat a certain way with certain macronutrients, so certain carbs and protein and fat, and then you do that for 4 or 5 days, and then you change it for a few days, and then you go back. That cycling actually helps you. We just eat the same kind of stuff all the time. Our ancestors didn't get the same stuff all the time. Like, you only had fresh fruit for a couple months, and unless you can stuff, you really only had that, and grains and stuff. And I'll tell you what's killed us: refrigeration. That's the problem. If you think about it, that's it. Being able to keep food on hand and for days and all the time and be ready to go. Refrigeration wasn't like it is now. And this is what people looked like in '69. They're all running around with their shirt off. If I had a 6-pack, I probably would have my shirt off more, I have to admit. Nobody else would like it, but I would do it. You don't see people hanging out like that anymore, but I don't think that was a strange scene in '69 or '70. And why? We cover it up all the time now. I mean, unless we're at the pool or the beach, we've got a lot of clothes on. And I think it's because we're self-conscious about our bodies. Anyway, and this is some ladies, I think that's '69 or '70. I mean, there's a girl on the far right, she's got a little belly. If there was a march that I couldn't find any good pictures, but if people were marching today, it would look different. It would look different. That's pretty much it. I'll stop there.